There we go. I had to loosen that up. Okay. You're knocking stuff over. We are live on the Facebook. Send me a link. Just search for the show. Okay. Hello, Facebook. We're about ready to start the next recording of the Fumblegate podcast. Nice new setup here, the new webcam, so a little space for us to work with. A couple spots open here. The officer will be here. We're in the home of the Fumblegate Fatty, but not sure if he's going to be able to make it on. He's been a little under the weather. So we're looking to see. Rich, trying to see if the Fatty will make it on here tonight. He's been feeling a little sick this evening. So we're hoping he can tough it out. But we still have a lot to get to. Here we'll talk about the injury to Carson Wentz. The officer is here. $3 glasses in hand. Just getting a couple last-minute things taken care of. Yeah, questionable to return. That's thanks, Eric. He's our man on our social media board here today. If Kieft is not able to make it, Eric's going to sit on the far seat over there to the right where you see the yellow bottle. But yeah, you can see above me, have if I can get my pen turned quick. There you go. The helmet that Kieft used while he was on the Bengals roster. We can't really say while he was playing because I think he had like 12 preseason snaps. That was it. But nevertheless. And then we have his CMU helmet over there. Fire up chips. Lukewarm chips. Oh, there we go. So we'll see what happens. But in either case, myself, the officer, we're here. We're ready to go. We've got a lot to get to, as we talked about on Facebook. And yes, Rich, big news on Aaron Rodgers. He is cleared to return. So we'll make sure that we make a mention of that. Aaron Rodgers returning. Okay. So, yeah, we will definitely make note of that there, Rich. We certainly thank you for tuning in. Get that. We're talking about Carson Wentz and the impact on him. Hey, there's the officer.
Hey, what's up? I had to print out my notes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. You got to get these things done. I know you have another rousing segment of Cleveland. No, I didn't do it right.
Ugh. Cleveland.
You get another good segment ready to go for that, I'm sure.
I do.
And we had some stuff ready that we teased at the end of last week's show. And by the way,
yes.
those still look like a digital trick.
That's good.
There he is.
I feel like I need to move a little bit.
You can see right here in front is the trophy that we've put out on Facebook before, the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week. I don't know if I don't feel right filling in for him on that if he's unable to make it.
I think we can just throw out a nomination and then just kind of leave it at that. Nobody actually wins it. It's just they were nominated.
Okay, that's
because he's not here to.
That's fair. Yeah,
he's here.
I don't want to steal his thunder. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, right.
Eric, you coming on over?
Sure.
Okay. The sweet hat.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's my drinking hat.
You ain't first, you're last.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, the guy that you're about to see walk into your screen right there his name's Eric Chester. You got to get the headphones and the mic in your face and all that kind of stuff. He's learning.
Oh, yeah, the hat doesn't work with the headphones.
It could.
What do you think?
There you go. Just move the mic where you need it.
No, that'll move forward.
See, there you go.
I'm good.
See, he's good. He's going to be manning this. He's going to be manning the social media aspect of it. Of the show. So if you have any questions or comments going throughout the show about various things we're going to talk about here, let us know. Oh, Oh, is Kieft coming back? You going to make it?
Is he rallying?
I think I'm ready.
Is he going to make it?
Are you gonna
Okay.
make it?
Yeah, I think so.
That's all right. Hey,
No, I think I'm gonna make it.
Eric is going to be part of the show,
I feel
though.
sometimes better.
Oh, wow. He's got water.
Water, man.
And he is
He
low.
must not be feeling
We
great.
listed you questionable to return.
I saw that. I appreciate Rich actually looking out.
Yeah, Rich is looking out for you.
Did I put my nose? You want a breakdown?
Yeah.
Did you steal it? Where'd it go?
Oh, it's on the table over there.
Where'd it go? This is-
You printed it out, and I thought it was my notes, and I'm like, how the hell?
What'd you do with it? You bum?
You bum.
Right there on the couch or on the
Sup?
table, one of the two.
What's up, Coach? Thank you for tuning in.
I just threw.
The wind is kicking in Milford.
The wind's kicking here. I just walked
Keith-
outside and almost got blown away.
Kieft, Kara says, "Hey, good to see you."
Oh, I got two.
Multiples.
With what?
Where did my notes go?
Check yours.
The ones that were on the printer, Bob.
No.
Oh,
The officer, did
it
you
wasn't
steal-
notes. It was just a rundown, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was my version of the rundown that had.
Oh, his
the notes
version.
on it.
Oh, okay.
I had the
These are my notes. Hold on.
So again, while we're getting set up
Jeez.
here, if you want to kind of check out what we've been talking about here, I'll kind of give you a quick rundown here.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the injury to Carson Wentz, the other injury to Tom Savage, the Texans quarterback, and kind of an extended view of the player safety issue. If you didn't see that Tom Savage basically seized on the field and they put him back in the game. So their Wentz, their playoff hopes. Good job, Eric. He's on the social media. So I said he's off screen. He's manning that for us. And like we said, any comments or questions that we talk about during the show, Eric's going to keep an eye on those, and we will cover those like we did last week. Kind of do a post-podcast show. We'll still record the entire thing here, obviously, but we'll do a post show and get to all your comments and your questions going forward from it. We'll talk about that. The retirement of perhaps the greatest returner in NFL history. We'll see if he's a Hall of Famer. We'll talk about that snow globe that the Bills and Colts played in.
There was a lot of good news this week.
There's
actually.
a lot of stuff
A lot of
going
good
on,
stuff
yeah.
to talk about.
College game, we've got Tennessee is finally hired themselves a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that. Yeah, he's another guy from the Nick Saban their coaching tree, I should say. So a little bit about that. Baker Mayfield wins a Heisman. And then we're also going to do a pick-em for the bowl season because that gets started this weekend, which is really hard to believe that we're going to have bowl games off and on for the next practically month. Really hard to believe.
I had to. It was the only way I could turn it down.
Oh,
by
okay.
logging in,
Okay, so that's okay. So we're all gonna make our picks for the early bowl games, and we're gonna keep track of that throughout the bowl season, so that everyone can.
God damn it!
It's not God's fault.
I didn't say it was. I was telling him to damn this.
You're in there now.
I don't know why
as Fumblegate.
But I'm trying to do it as FGP Cop.
Well, if you need to man it as that's okay for this week.
Whatever.
Yeah, so we'll do our bowl picks.
Good shot of my legs. I should have shaved.
We can't see though the golf ball that's on the top of your foot.
Zing.
That's good.
Whew. I've been drinking a lot of water today.
Oh,
That's okay.
Whew. Yeah, I feel better though.
Well,
10 times better than I was feeling before that.
Yeah,
But if I skip out again, you know why.
That's okay. We got a lot to get to here today as well, and we'll also talk about some head coaches in the NFL that might be in some hot water, and which ones maybe we think will not be around next season. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do not have Marvin Lewis on my list.
I don't either.
He's on mine.
Nope.
I just kind of assume you think it's kind of a given.
Are we a little blurry?
A little bit, yeah. I try messing with it here, Coach. Let's try this. See how blurry it looks now. Womp, womp. See what I mean? That's as clear focus as we're gonna have. Looks like. Even though we do have, as you can see, a new camera to work with here. I said we're still missing that. We need a banner up front. We talked about last.
I know.
Talked about last week.
What happened with that?
We're still.
I didn't check the mail today. It might Coach might have got us their stuff today, but I didn't check the mail.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Coach. If you did send it and it was supposed to be here today, I apologize.
You bum.
It's not his fault. It's my fault.
I know. I'm calling you.
Oh, okay,
You-
fair.
you-
Ah,
Yeah,
fair
you're
enough.
the
Fair enough.
bum. Yeah, you're the
I don't know how I can.
yeah, Coach Krager. We definitely appreciate that.
Sorry for the mispronunciation of your name as well.
Yes, do apologize for that. We got it right now, Coach Krager, up there in the Michigan area.
Yep.
Yeah, Mike O'Toole. How's it going, buddy?
We
You remember that game?
We started with
Oh, yeah, I remember
What's
that
that?
guy.
Yeah. We're gonna start with the NFL this week and then get into the college stuff. You all set there, man?
I think so.
You sure you're gonna make it?
Have you hydrated up a little bit? And this is weird. Nobody is drinking in
I
this
know.
this episode.
I was planning on it. As I told you guys,
You've got a
ahead of time,
Capri Sun right there, officer.
That was mine too.
I got a bottle of water.
You
too.
you guys are going hard these days.
I know.
I was planning on it. I had those $3 12 packs I picked up today. I was going to have a couple of those, but
Right.
that didn't work out well.
Well, that's all right.
Oh, shoot. I got to go back and figure that out.
So we're still getting things situated here. We're almost ready to go with the actual podcast portion of the show, which you can check out on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Just search Fumblegate. We are the only Fumblegate out there.
Hey, did we?
Coach wants to know if you caught what your boy had.
Yeah,
Kieft.
probably.
One of your sons has been under
Well,
the weather.
Since I was catching his puke in my hands, it's probably what ended up
that'll do
happening.
it.
Ew. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah. No.
That's probably where I'm at right now.
It's some of the downsides of fatherhood.
You've got a trash can not too far away from you. Just
Yeah,
turn your
if,
head.
If I inexplicably disappear, you'll know why. What the?
Eric's on it. His kid catch them. I didn't know lineman could catch.
Zing.
So that's Eric Chester, our social media guy. I said he's keeping track of all the. He'll be the one interacting with you throughout the show. He'll also take any of your comments or questions to give to us, and we'll address those after the actual podcast portion of this Facebook Live broadcast. Once again, we want to thank everyone who's tuning in here on Facebook Live.
Yes.
What was his first name?
What?
Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor.
Yeah. Getting his last minute information for the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the week.
Vinatieri's first name's Adam. How could you
It's a great
forget
name.
that?
Great.
Well, he's going to be discussed because
He
that
comes up.
snow globe
So-
may have cost him some money.
Yeah.
Lots of money.
And yeah, I should say you're right. Yeah, lots of money. That's a good point. That is a very good point.
Was it 30, 34, and 36? 30.
The one you're talking about, it
Yeah.
was 33 and 46. So again, just an insight into what he's gonna cover in his Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the week, which is gonna come towards the end of the show.
Yep.
So you want to stay tuned for that, and of course,
We're switching things up a little bit.
yeah, we tend to make.
Cleveland is more towards like the middle or so.
Yeah.
This time.
We got to keep everybody on their toes. You
Right.
don't want to keep it predictable.
No.
So hopefully I'm still here for the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the week.
Hopefully,
Hopefully we make it that far.
yeah. Hopefully. All right.
If not, it's going to be.
I'm just going to throw it in there in the middle and be like, all right, I'm out. Here you go.
Okay.
Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the week, I'm out.
So we'll do the thing I was talking about before, the new intro we were talking about.
Okay.
Everybody does their own
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
What everybody have?
We didn't discuss that.
We'll
go with
just
it.
find out.
Okay, fine.
I'll start off, and you guys can
All right.
follow.
So are we starting the show? Or are
Yeah.
we still going to screw around?
No, we're going to start the show.
All right.
We need to get things
Let's
rolling.
dig in.
Yeah.
That gives more time for Q&A at the end.
That's correct.
And I might have less
Yeah.
than an hour.
Yeah, so
on this
anybody, any questions come to your mind or whatever, throw it out there. We've got Eric tracking everything for us. If football related, our opinions on whatever, not football related, whatever you want.
And because you have the guy in the middle here, the officer who is a police officer. So if you got any questions, maybe about what his day-to-day activities are, maybe
Yes.
if you've been in a bind yourself and you need some advice,
Yes.
or the guy on the end, Mr. Adam Kieft, a former Cincinnati Bengal, if you want to know what life was like in a locker room led by Marvin Lewis, he's got some good insight.
And
on
Brian
that.
Kelly.
The helmet behind FGP Cop, that is the Central Michigan helmet. Hashtag lukewarm chips.
Fire up, chips.
Or that.
Central Michigan Chippewas, baby.
Yeah, because we're in the home of Adam Kieft. So
Don't sleep on the Chippewas.
Well, they'll be in the blue turf. All right.
Mashed potato bowl.
All right, we ready?
Let's rock it.
Here we go. Let's now begin the Fumblegate podcast. I am Jason Grefer, and I'm going to tell you on this episode of Fumblegate why Russell Wilson should be the NFL MVP.
I'm the officer, and I'm going to tell you why Cleveland Browns suck.
And I'm Fumblegate Fatty, otherwise known as Adam Kieft. And I'm going to tell you why Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach of all time.
And with that, we do welcome you to another episode of the Fumblegate podcast. Use the hashtag Fumblegate on Facebook and Twitter to interact. Follow us on there, Facebook, Twitter, at Fumblegate, fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com. Wow. Chugging that one already. Keeps getting rid of one bottle. You're under the weather a little bit this week. Weren't sure if you were going to make it in, but we do appreciate you toughing it out.
Puke and rally.
And
that's why I'm here.
And second week in a row.
It's like your college days.
Yeah. Except for today I wasn't drinking.
Second week in a row, we are, in fact, recording on Facebook. You can check us out every week on Facebook Live. And then, of course, check out the podcast version that we're going to get into right now. Let's get right into it. The biggest story of the NFL season this weekend, the Philadelphia Eagles losing Carson Wentz to a torn ACL in the end of a great game that they wound up winning anyway against the LA Rams. And so now Eagles 11-2 on the year. They're currently the number one seed, but you thought for maybe outside the first month of the season with the way Alex Smith had played early that the MVP was Carson Wentz's to lose.
Oh, yeah.
At this point.
Oh, without a doubt.
Now, we'll talk about the MVP here in just a moment, but how crippling is this to the Eagles losing this guy who was having the year of years?
I don't know if it's crippling to them per se. I think part of it that may help them is that Nick Foles has more experience when they get to the playoffs, obviously, than Carson Wentz does. I don't know if that experience translates into success, but at this point, you got to figure they're going to have a pretty high seed. They're going to have a first-round home game probably. So I think having Nick Foles as the backup helps. I think that's something the experience is going to bode well for them. I don't know that they get any farther, I don't know that they even win a game now with losing Carson Wentz. But even with him, I don't know if they do either. It depends on who they're matched up against. You got a second-year quarterback that was going to be matched up against a really, a playoff atmosphere, and then how would he respond to that? Now we don't get to find out, but they may not have won the game without or with Carson Wentz, but I don't think Nick Foles hurts them too much.
I think they're still a really good team. I mean, they are a really good team all the way around. But I think this hurts. I mean, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender anymore, and they were probably the favorite going into this. I don't know. Unless you have just a historically great defense, you need a premier quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and they don't have either now. So
I think now this makes it a tougher road for them to get to the Super Bowl. I'm kind of going where you are, officer, with that. I think they can still get to the NFC title game because I think with the way the standings are now, they've got enough of a lead to where the division's already been clinched. So they already have the home game in the first round, but they also have a lead over the Vikings as far as the number one overall seed, which would get them a first-round bye.
Yeah.
So you have an extra week ready to go to get Nick Foles ready. And the coaching staff has said the offense won't change under Nick Foles because he's been there for the last couple of years, knows what's to be expected, and had a couple of good years in Philly. Granted, those were under Andy Reid. But
and he left for a couple of years and it's come back.
They brought him back for a reason, and that's what they said in the post-game press conference. Nick Foles is here for a reason. This is why we wanted him. We wanted a veteran guy with experience.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it may not hurt them. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily put him as a Super Bowl contender, even with Carson Wentz, just because of his youth. And you look at who else is in that division, namely Drew Brees down there in New Orleans. I think that there is, to a point in the playoffs, there is some validity to experience. And that's why I held a little bit of caution. Regular season is one thing, but experience in the playoffs does make a difference.
When you look at some of the other teams in the NFC playoff picture, and Minnesota is lacking that quarterback experience, even though Case Keenum has been great.
Oh, he's playing phenomenal
for Minnesota, and they have a killer defense going with the way Mike Zimmer's built that up there. You do have New Orleans with Drew Brees, who has won a Super Bowl before, knows what it takes to get it done in the playoffs. You have Carolina in the fight with Cam Newton, he's been hashtag punch face.
100% punch face.
They've been to the Super Bowl before. You could make a case for his lack thereof of against Denver in that game, in that Super Bowl game. But then you have a couple of guys there that have experience. Matt Ryan, of course, if Atlanta is able to get in, I think they're going to need some help to get in at this point. But then you have out in the NFC West, the LA Rams continue to lead that division, but you have Jared Goff at quarterback. He's inexperienced the same way Carson Wentz. Yeah, the same draft. So it's not I don't know if that's daunting of a task. My only concern for them is if they draw New Orleans, because New Orleans somehow has figured out how to play defense this season. Yeah. And Drew Brees is completing at a rate of 72% of his passes. And they found a running game.
They're running the ball. They have the number one overall offense this year, and they're fifth in passing and fourth in rushing. They're ranked higher in rushing than
Drew Brees. I think only has 19 passing touchdowns this season through 13 games.
Well, that's
how often does that happen?
That's because Alvin Kamara is electric. Man.
Is he the rookie of the year offensively?
I don't know how he's not
over Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, he's now. I mean, Kareem Hunt and what happened to the Chiefs. The same thing we said with Alex Smith. Like the team that's the most successful typically is where those awards come from, and the Chiefs fell off, and thusly Alex Smith did as well, and so did Kareem Hunt. So I think at this point he has to be.
So with Wentz out, and again, we talked about it before, he was the prohibitive MVP favorite and probably will still get some votes for MVP, given that he's only going to miss the final 3 games of the regular season and, of course, the playoffs. So who does that elevate now to the front runner spot? Is it Tom Brady? Is it Drew Brees? In your guys' mind?
Unfortunately, I think it's Tom Brady. I don't say that to take a dig at him, because I think he's a very good quarterback. He's probably the greatest quarterback of all time. But you see what he does in that system and how he's successful, and what happened when he wasn't there, and they were still successful when he was hurt that season. So I think it's almost like I just want somebody else to win. Like give somebody else a chance.
You're tired of it?
Yeah, just give somebody else a chance to win. Stop giving Tom Brady awards.
I do think he's the front runner because he's Tom Brady, and he is having a good year. But I do feel like now, with Wentz out, this is maybe the most wide open.
It did open it back up to the field.
That we've had in a long time. Yeah. I think Antonio Brown.
He did it. I was going to say it.
I know, right?
No, I was going to bring it up.
Fire up chips. Fire up chips.
No. Okay, so he's on pace right now to have like 1,850 or so yards. He could crack 2,000, and if he does, he's MVP. That's right now.
I would love to see it happen. I think he's deserving. He's as important of a player on that team as anybody else around the.
I think the thing that hurts his case is that you also have Le'Veon Bell leading the league in rushing. So it's harder to make the claim, at least in my view, that Brown is that invaluable. I'm not disagreeing your points, but I think that hurts him that Bell has been so good this season as well, coming out of the backfield, doing what he does, not only rushing but receiving the ball as well.
Well, so can I throw in real quick?
Sure.
So when I was looking this stuff up, I saw that no receiver has ever been the MVP.
Nope, never happened.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But you know what? There has been a kicker.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. In 1982, Mark Mosley.
I couldn't think of his name. Yeah, it was a 9-game season, the strike year.
Yep.
He won the MVP
with the Redskins.
He went 20 for 21, and the only one he missed was in week 17. But back then, people didn't really the rest of the league average kicking percentage was 68%. So just back then, you didn't have kickers.
Kieft, how much does that burn you that a kicker was National Football League MVP?
Yeah, it should burn everybody.
We haven't had a
kicker, but not a receiver. Yeah. And you think of some of the great receivers of all time that have obviously never been the MVP, and somehow a kicker snuck his name in.
Jerry Rice has never been MVP, but Mark Mosley has.
Randy Moss never was MVP. Right. Like just how dominant those guys were at their position during their prime, and they've never won an MVP, but a kicker did.
Right.
I said at the top of the show, I'm making my case for Russell Wilson for league MVP. And I know Seattle is not even in first place in their division. They're 8-5. That is not on him. That defense is getting older. They've been hurt a lot most of the year. The Legion of Boom, all of them have been out. All of them are out hurt. And they have been, and they've been giving up more plays. But here's some numbers to make my case for Russell Wilson. He has accounted for 86% of his team's touchdowns this year. He has 32 of his team's 37 touchdowns. He's 6th in the NFL in passing yards. He's 2nd in passing touchdowns behind Carson Wentz, who's now out. He leads his team in rushing more than double the next guy on the team. Also leads in touchdowns. He has 3 rushing touchdowns, leads the team. That's how bad they've been running the football. He also has 500 yards, almost 500 yards rushing. That's 2nd in the league in quarterbacks behind only Cam Newton. But I go back to the first stat I mentioned. He has accounted for 86% of his team's touchdowns on the season. That would break an NFL record set by John Kitna back in 2006 with the Lions.
Kitna.
For
who picked that one?
Right.
Everybody listening had no idea that John Kitna holds that record right now.
But the team has 37 touchdowns. He has 32 of them.
That's awesome.
On his own. So you take away Russell Wilson, with as bad as their offensive line has been the last couple of years, given the fact that they spend no money on their offensive line, even though they won a Super Bowl spending the most money on the offensive line. He's 6th in the league in passing yards, 2nd in touchdowns, as I mentioned. All these numbers you take him out of that team at 3 wins, maybe 4 at most, because they can't run the ball. You have Jimmy Graham at tight end, but they don't have
throw it to him.
They don't have a stout receiver on the team. You could maybe make the case for Doug Baldwin, but he's not the prototypical guy you come think of when it's a number 1 guy.
Yeah.
On the team. Like as I mentioned before, the defense is getting older. That pass secondary, even when they were healthy, they were giving up bigger plays than they had ever before when the Legion of Boom was together. So you factor all those in. I look at him, and Kieft, you brought up the point with Brady before, and I know it was a decade ago, but by and large, that system has lent itself to success at quarterbacks in New England. And so I don't think you get that in Seattle with Russell Wilson. Like I said, I think you take him away from that team, they're maybe a 3-win team right now at most because they're so bad running the football. He has to do everything.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, he's leading by more than double in rushing yards.
Yeah,
because
it's one of those things that we've brought this up before is how do you measure the MVP? Is it the most important player to their team, or is it the best statistical
the best
guy
player
in the league?
on the best team?
Yeah. And, that's a great case for him being the best player on his team and really putting them in a position to make the playoffs. And you look around and a guy like Tom Brady, they're probably in the same position no matter who's under center.
Well, I look at that as the MVP race is if you take that guy off their team, how much does that team drop off? And I think that Seattle team drops off more than anybody else without Russell Wilson. And you can compare it to what the Colts have been through without Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
this season. That's been
or what they went through without Peyton Manning a few years back.
Yeah, exactly.
If there was ever evidence that Peyton Manning should have been an MVP before, was when the season he didn't play, they were awful.
Right.
I mean, that makes it.
They didn't go 11-5 like the Patriots did without Tom Brady.
With Matt Castle. With Matt Castle,
who didn't even start in college.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he's third string at best at USC. So our cases for MVP. There you go. Let us know who you think they are using the hashtag Fumblegate at Fumblegate on Facebook and Twitter. We talked about the injury to Carson Wentz a moment ago, and it seems like there's just a rash of injuries this season to a lot of big-name players, he being one of them. One injury that occurred this past weekend to a guy that's not necessarily in the same level as far as popularity as Carson Wentz, and that's Texans quarterback Tom Savage. In their game, went down, took a beating the entire game, but on one particular play was driven into the ground and he was out of it clearly and appeared to almost convulse. His hands were shaking. It's almost as if he was having a seizure on there.
It was scary.
Goes into the tent on the sideline, misses one series and gets sent back into the game. And then they realize, he can't walk. We should probably get him out of the game.
And they said it was an assistant coach that pulled him off. It wasn't even the NFL concussion guys. It was assistant coach that said, hey, this is bad. Like, he should not be out there.
So is it the NFL's blame for this happening
100%.
that he went back out there, and how broken is this system right now?
Well, that's what it comes down to. Is there's supposed to be fail safes in place.
There's not.
And you're telling me that a doctor cleared him
After he's on the ground, stiff as a board, shaking.
Yes,
that's beyond me.
That was awful.
I didn't see it live, obviously, but I saw the replay of it, and I was just dumbfounded that he went back in the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
It's a hit that you almost think that he's going to leave the field on a stretcher. He's clearly out of it when the official comes to check on him. His arms are stuck in place, and a series later, he's back on the field. Are you kidding me? You can't tell me that there wasn't a head injury there when you're stuck like that. It just doesn't happen. You don't just make that up. And it's astonishing that, and we talked about this again before, the league talks about player safety, and then you see something like that happen. They aren't interested in player safety. That's crap, because there's no reason that he should be on the field.
And you saw an instance of it on a Thursday night a couple of weeks ago when Seattle was playing at Arizona, and Russell Wilson got pulled off the field by the official, which means you have to sit out for a while, and they follow him on the camera to the sideline. He goes into the tent for literally a second and a half, comes back out, and goes back into the game. He was cleared that quickly.
Yeah.
You have to – I look at it as you could put some of the blame on the team. That's fine. But when the league is sending the message down, or maybe not sending the message down, that this needs to be a longer and more further evaluation of every guy that comes off, because if that's not the case, or if that's the case, these further evaluations go on, Tom Savage is not going back onto the field.
No.
After one series. And I know Bill O'Brien has said if I had seen it live, he wouldn't have gone back out. And Tom Savage has said no one sticks up for their players more than Bill O'Brien. And I don't put it on Bill O'Brien because he's got a lot to manage.
But how many eyes does the NFL have on every game?
You're right.
Or supposedly have on every game.
And that's what I'm saying.
That gets missed completely. It's 100% the NFL's fault. Because a player's going to play. You have a hard time convincing a player not to play if they feel okay.
They want to be out there.
They want to be out there, and they want to, they want to be with their teammates, and they want to lead their team, particularly at the quarterback position. And so, unless somebody's telling him he can't go back out there, take his helmet away from him and hide it like they do in high school, hide his helmet so he can't sneak back on the field. That's the only way that's going to change. And if the NFL doesn't have their concussion protocol in place and it's effective, obviously it's not, then what's the point of it? Then we're back to
because they just want the appearance that they care about player safety.
Here's the tent for concussion protocols. Step inside and back you go.
Right.
It's astonishing, and you see, the CTE stuff and all the stuff that's coming out, and it's just getting worse for the league. But then something like this happens on the field, and then it makes it even worse. You're finding all this research that makes it terrible, and then you see the NFL doesn't really care. That's just so frustrating for veteran
To your
players.
point with the CTE cases, Larry Johnson, the former running back, most notably with the Chiefs, who
just came out yesterday,
just came out and said he believes he has CTE, and of course right now they don't really have a way to track that as far as people that are still alive
until you die. Yeah.
But he said during an interview that he felt, number one, that he and Aaron Hernandez were kind of kindred spirits because he just has these just violent rages that he wants to act out on sometimes. And he has said if it's not for his daughter that he may act out on those. And that's a scary thing to think about. And then you have Artie Burns, a defensive back for the Steelers playing right now, who says, I know I have CTE based on that. And just still, you just continue to let this happen. And this has been one of the most, really, are you serious type of moments, seeing, to your point before, how many cameras do you have available there that you don't have someone in the league office send a buzzer down saying, not only he needs to stay off the field, send him to the locker room.
Yeah.
I think that's the next step that the league may try to make, is if they believe there's a concussion, he needs to go to the locker room to be assessed.
Get all the way off the field and have it off,
because
out of view, so the team doesn't expect him to come back and he's away from the action.
Yes, because leaving the player on the field, it's almost like holding a piece of meat out in front of a hungry dog. He wants to go get it. The player wants to go back onto the field.
Yeah.
And so to take him away from that, it allows him, I think, to fully focus on being evaluated and be honest with the trainer, because how many guys have said, I'm fine, give me some smelling salt, and then we find out that he's had concussions. So a lot to that discussion is going to continue going forward. There was another instance, a couple other instances in a different game, two separate instances we'll get to now. In the Seattle-Jacksonville game, which was another really strong game and a nice win for Jacksonville. But at the end of the game, Jacksonville goes into victory formation, and usually you just, if you're the other team, you concede, just kind of go through the motions, get in your stance,
stand
and
up, pat each other on the ass, and have a good game.
Seattle didn't go for that this time. They pulled the Greg Schiano Tampa Bay thing, where in victory formation, let's dive straight in and try and knock that ball loose, because that's the argument anyway, because you never know. You could have a fumble exchange.
They might drop it, whatever.
Okay.
How many times does that happen?
Do you take issue with that?
Well, okay, so that is kind of lame, I guess. That was weak. But then when he goes and rolls up on the center's leg 5 yards away after they did get the fact, clearly trying to hurt the guy and starting a fight, rolling on top of him, get out of here. But then again, it is Michael Bennett, and I think he's a clown.
Yeah.
So
we've talked about that before.
Yes.
To me, it's just stupid. And again, it goes back to, we talked, as a player safety amongst teams, is when are they going to start respecting each other as professionals?
Right.
Like, the diving at the knees thing on the take a knee is stupid. I think it's dumb. It's, when does that ever change the outcome of taking a knee? But the after the fact stuff where he's diving at knees and then punches start getting thrown.
Yeah, I take issue with that.
It's just stupid.
I do like it.
And then nobody got suspended. That's what blows my mind.
I do like that Pete Carroll took his dive for the snap ability away. Says you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So at least Pete Carroll realizes it was weak. Yeah.
But and nobody got suspended, which to me is a bit confusing. You punish people for in-game play, but then something clearly blatant outside of the game, outside of the whistles, doesn't get suspended. But again, it's player safety. NFL's all about player safety.
And I'm a little surprised that Quentin Jefferson didn't get suspended.
Yeah, he was on the sideline after being removed from the game.
He was supposed to leave. He was
supposed to leave and didn't, and fans started talking to him, and he started jawing back, and then fans started chucking stuff at him, and you could see, plain as day on the camera, it would look to be a beer cup hit him right in the head, and he tried to climb up and go after the.
Yeah, was he going to beat up all the?
We almost had a Ron Artest situation.
Malice in the Palace,
right there. Okay,
you were there at the game that Chad Ochocinco or Johnson or whatever he was going to
jumped in the dog pound,
and somebody threw a beer on him.
Yes, it did.
Did he go after him?
No.
Right.
Well, that was a little different. That he had talked to those people ahead of time and said, hey, if I score, I'm going to do this. And to be fair, some of those Cleveland fans there caught him, and they understood. So they were cool about it. So a little bit different there, but I get the same. But yes, beer was chucked at him. I had a little bit on me as I was about 10 feet away from where that happened. Do you take it do you blame him for his actions?
Yes.
Trying to go into the stands like that?
They shouldn't have done it. The fans are wrong. However, be a man. Like come on.
That was his
Walk
thing.
off the field like
that
you're
was his
supposed
thing
to.
after the game. I'm a man. If you're going to disrespect me, I'm going to answer back.
Which is fine.
To my point, that is you're a professional.
Right.
Yeah. Be a man and walk away.
We had a similar discussion I don't know, several weeks back about the Donald Penn incident in Oakland. William Penn. But it's the same thing. Fans there's going to be drunk assholes out there, and you just have to be a professional and be the bigger man and suck it up. People are going to say stuff. The beer, that sucks, and that's getting stuff, but it didn't hurt you. It wasn't a beer bottle. And what are you going to do? I'm sure he didn't see who threw it. I doubt he was going to climb up in the fan and up in the stands and just start beating people up. Yeah, or maybe he was. I don't know.
And again, like we talk about Donald Penn. What's the end game? What's your ultimate goal? If you make it into the stands, what's your ultimate goal?
Right.
Like obviously, in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking things through clearly, but. If you somehow make it up in the stands, what do you want to accomplish? Are you just going to get pummeled by more beer, or are you going to start knocking out fans and then truly get suspended?
Right.
I think you should have got suspended for trying to enter the stands.
I think if you try to go into the stands and fight people at a game after you've been ejected, how are you not suspended?
Yeah, you've already been ejected from that game, and then you carry on.
And you didn't leave like you were supposed to, so you're not even supposed to be there. Clown.
Yeah, stupid.
They got to.
One other real quick bit of injury news that's just come out within the last couple of days is the fact that Aaron Rodgers has announced he is medically cleared to return and plans on playing this weekend against the Carolina Panthers. They've sort of kept themselves afloat in the playoffs with Brett Hundley there.
I think somebody said that. Brett Hundley could keep them afloat till Aaron Rodgers comes back in about 6 weeks.
Would that be the guy, the officer who picked Green Bay to win the Super Bowl?
No, the officer cashed the season in
But by keeping them afloat, do you mean going 2-5 and up until this most recent game?
They're in position to make the playoffs, correct?
Yeah.
They're in position. You cashed it in.
He did. It's no thanks to Brett Hundley though.
No, but he did what had to happen. They kept him afloat, gave him a shot at the playoffs, and they have a chance. And now Aaron Rodgers is back 7 weeks later.
They're currently a game out of the playoffs, 1 game behind the Atlanta Falcons. And as I mentioned, they play Carolina this coming week, who sits in the 5 spot. So the possibility's there.
You win all 3, and you got a pretty good shot at it.
Yeah, you do. Still at 10-6. They're 3 games behind Minnesota, who's a win this week. They clinch their division. So moving on from there, Rodgers returning. Another guy who we haven't heard from in a number of years has actually officially announced that he is done, and that is Devin Hester, the longtime return man, I think most notably for the Bears. Of course, he's been with a few other teams in his career. Finished his career as the all-time leader in kick returns for touchdowns, both punts, kickoffs. He also had a missed field goal run back. He was a 3-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro, went to 4 Pro Bowls. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Well, is he or should he be? Because I say he absolutely should not be. He shouldn't even be considered until Steve Tasker is in there. Because Steve Tasker is the greatest special team player of all time, without a doubt. He's been to 7 Pro Bowls. He's the greatest gunner ever. He could do everything on special teams. He was a Pro Bowl MVP. How many people can do that just as special teams? Wow. The guy was amazing. He was an animal. And so Devin Hester, yeah, he was good, and he probably, unfortunately, has a better shot than Tasker because he scored touchdowns.
Points matter.
And but in the era that Tasker played, it wasn't this high scoring offenses. It was a lot more of pinning them back in field position and run game. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know that Devin Hester was more valuable. I know Devin Hester wasn't more valuable than Tasker was, even given the time difference. But
he kind of is to a point though, because you had to game plan around him, and then
you had to game plan around Tasker.
I agree, but you couldn't kick the ball to Devin Hester because he had a chance every time he touched the ball to take it to the end zone. It's I'm not arguing that Tasker wasn't a great football player, because he was, but at the end of the day, points matter. And when it comes to Hall of Fame credentials, being the all-time leader in kick returns makes a difference. And, I think he gets in. If he doesn't, it wouldn't surprise me. I think he gets in. I think his record will probably stand for a while. I don't think you're going to see a guy have 20 return touchdowns anytime soon.
14.
No, 20 total.
He has 14 punts.
14 punts, five kickoffs, and a field goal.
Okay, should he be? In your eyes?
So.
No.
He's the greatest returner of all time, and it's not even close. I think he should be.
I don't think he should be either. I liken it to you only have a certain number of kickers in the Hall of Fame. You only have 1 punter in the Hall of Fame. And outside of that, for me, I liken it to the designated hitter in baseball, because there's an argument to be made this season or upcoming whether Edgar Martinez, a longtime DH for the Mariners, should be in the Hall of Fame. For me, with Hester, that was all he did. They tried to make him a receiver in Chicago. Didn't work out. There was thought for a while, maybe make him defensive back just to get him on the field, and that didn't work either. He was so specialized, great as he was. And I know they say, special teams is a third part of the game, but really, we all know it's a small third part of the game. It's not an equal third part of the game whatsoever. So for me, the most popular thing is there's 2 sides of the ball, offense, defense, and then kind of, and special teams.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, because he had such a niche, that I think if he gets in, which I don't think he will or should, it's going to take a long time for him to get in.
Yes.
It's going to take there's going to be a lot of other guys to get in before him.
It's the same argument as it was with Ray Guy. It's going to be one of those things that it's going to that's why I said I don't think he's by any means any kind of first ballot, second ballot, third ballot kind of Hall of Famer. I think that at some point,
I think it could take him
realize-
20 years.
It might. He might be dead before he gets in. I just think at some point that people will recognize, and I think they know how special it was, but they'll just recognize that something like that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And if it doesn't happen, it wouldn't surprise me. I just, I think eventually it does.
One guy who I think, even though I just talked about the special teams guys sort of being cast aside, one guy will be a Hall of Famer, and that's Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah.
Because of all his clutch kicks he's made to playoffs, Super Bowls, so on and so forth. He had to kick in a virtual snow globe this past week.
What a bum.
Up in Buffalo, yeah. In which there was just snow piled up everywhere. It was fun to watch on television, probably.
It was probably fun to play in.
It may very well be. Well, he missed 2 field goals in the game because the conditions were so bad. And because of that, he's now fallen below 90% accuracy on the season. If he stays below that for the last 3 weeks, he loses $500,000 because of a bonus clause in his contract. So he has to go 5 for 5 the rest of the year.
His kids won't eat.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Keeping food out of his kids' mouths.
Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, you go ahead. So with that, would you guys go to a game like that as a fan? Would you sit in Buffalo like that?
No. Not in the situation that they were in.
Well, what if you had the opportunity, like Buffalo residents did, come into the place, shovel some snow out, we'll give you free tickets?
Definitely not then.
No. Still wouldn't. But here's the thing, and I brought this up amongst the group before we came on the air, but credit to Buffalo fans, because what other fans in the country are going to do that? Like, honestly, you pick another fan base.
It was a packed house, too.
Yeah, and just you look at some of the pictures on social media, and there are people buried in snow.
Yeah.
Like,
how do you sit there still like that with
4 inches of snow on top of them, and they're just sitting there watching a football game? Like, it's astonishing. Like, it was really cool. It's one of those games that, I didn't watch the whole thing, but just seeing clips of it and seeing all the white, losing the Colts players at some point during the game because of all the snow. It was kind of hard to keep track of where the Colts were. It was pretty cool to see the atmosphere looked really exciting. Wouldn't want to do it, but it looked really exciting.
You wouldn't want to play in that either?
No. I played in a couple games where it was snowing. Never played in a game where they had to plow the field during the game.
Were you one of the tough guys that went without sleeves?
Never wore sleeves in my entire career. Not in practice.
But you wouldn't play in that. But you wouldn't play in that.
No, I mean, I think it'd be fun.
I think it'd be fun.
It would be fun.
So you would play, but not attend.
Yeah, I would play it. Yeah, it was one of those things that I was talking to my best friend on Monday morning, and I said it almost looked like when we were kids in Michigan. You go out when it snowed like that. You go out and play tackle football in the front yard. You'd bundle up and play tackle. That's almost what it looked like because there was just that much snow on the ground.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool to see, and the you couldn't even tell where the lines were. They were only doing the hashes. I don't know how. If there was a call close to the goal line, I don't know how the hell they see that. It was at that point. It's almost like, just let it go.
So you're going to give Vinatieri a pass on the FFK.
You have to when you're spotting the ball in 4 inches of snow. I mean,
but they had the whole team out there kicking it.
Well, that was on the game time PAT. They had the whole team, and then Buffalo with a little gamesmanship. Buffalo's kicking the snow back into where they're clearing it out.
One of the best parts was a Buffalo defender getting a sack on Jacoby Brissett and then
doing
the impromptu snowball
fight. That
was
so awesome.
That was a good one, yeah.
One of the guys you talked about before, how do you keep track of some of the Colts players? Because they were wearing all white uniforms in it, which made it more fun. How much respect do you have for 34-year-old Frank Gore carrying the ball 36 times in that game?
I know,
Franklin Delano Gore. He's the man.
Still around, man.
How awesome is he?
Yeah.
He's fifth all-time in rushing, and he has said if he finds the right situation next year, which likely means Colts, I'm out of here, he wants to play next year.
Yeah, good for him.
How much respect do you have for a 34-year-old veteran like that to say, give me the rock? Because 34-year-old running backs, they
don't have it.
Yeah, and this is the guy.
It's like Sasquatch.
This is the guy that tore his ACL twice in college, and then he has been an Iron Man in the NFL. I mean, to play running back in the NFL as long as he's steady Eddie. Yeah.
Can we just measure him for his Canton jacket now?
At this point, yeah. I mean,
he's great.
The numbers, and he's still playing, and he's still effective.
He's their leading rusher.
Yeah, I mean, it's astonishing. Like because whatever fountain of youth he found, he needs to give it to other players because I think it's fun to see him play at such a high level at this age.
So with 3 weeks now left in the regular season, playoff situations are taking shape. Teams are getting eliminated. Teams are fighting for seeds, division titles. A couple of those have been clinched. A lot of teams focusing on their future now that the playoffs are out of reach. So we want to take a look with 3 weeks left Everybody here, name 3 guys who they think will be let go or not renewed in their contract in their current situation as head coaches. I'll start mine.
Go for it.
I'll start mine. We talked about Frank Gore. I think Chuck Pagano's a goner in Indianapolis. 8-8 the last 2 years after going 11-5 the previous, I think, 3 years there with Andrew Luck and everything they had there. They're 3-10 this year without Luck. You could make the case, okay, I didn't have my best quarterback, but the last couple of years you've seen that roster decline in talent. You've seen Luck just take a pounding.
Yeah, they haven't surrounded him with much. And we've talked about that before.
Right.
There's not a lot of weapons around Luck, even if he's healthy.
And even so this year with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and I believe Scott Tolzien started a game too, their offensive line has allowed 52 sacks in 14 games. And this is a guy in Chuck Pagano, and I know he's a defensive guy. He did great things when he was a defensive coordinator in Baltimore. That defense has not gotten better. They've only gotten worse. Yeah. It just comes to a point where even Jim Irsay said, I know he has 2 more years left on his contract before this season. He's only guaranteed this season, which pretty much tells me you're done and gone anyway. Yeah. But I think he's number 1 on my list. Number 2, I'm going to go to Tampa Bay. I'm going to look at Dirk Cutter down in Tampa. They went 9-7 last year, and everybody thought, well, they kind of popped up out of nowhere last year. I thought they'd take another step forward this year. This year, they're 4-9. They have 3 divisional games left against the 3 teams that have a shot at the playoffs there, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans. So you lose all 3 of those, you finish 4-12. There's reports now he has issues with Jameis Winston. They're bickering back and forth. And we know, based on past experience throughout the league, when it comes to a head coach and star quarterback beef,
quarterback wins.
Bingo. The ownership siding with the quarterback there. And if this happens, and I think it could, because Cutter also being an offensive guy this year, they're averaging just 20 points a game. That's in the bottom third of the league. This would be the 3rd time in a row they've gotten rid of a coach after 2 years, which is pretty dysfunctional if you ask me.
Yeah, and I don't know that you necessarily even blame him. I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not a Jameis Winston fan. I don't think he's a quarterback who's going to be successful in this league, and it's part of the blame to me falls on
hashtag
him.
Other punch face.
Yeah, hashtag other punch face. Hashtag eat
I'm
not saying,
I'm not saying it's not on him, but like we talked about, the ownership is going to commit to a quarterback longer than they're going to commit to a head coach.
So the quarterback wins that battle.
Exactly, and especially now with the talk of dissension between the two, that's not good for Dirk Cutter.
No,
and the third and final one I'm going to bring up, even though it was announced by ownership that he's going to come back next year. Hue Jackson won't make it another year if they go 0-16. There is no way. I don't think you can justify, even to your fan base, which is, I'll give Cleveland credit. They have a very die-hard fan base up there.
Yeah.
When they get their fans there, they're as loyal as anybody in the league. I don't see how you can justify losing 31 of 32 games with one guy as your head coach.
It's tough to sell.
He is supposed to be the offensive guy, offensive guru. He did a lot of great things in Cincinnati, helping their offense along the last couple of years before he left, and now you can make the point. We've seen what the Bengals' offense has become without Hue Jackson. But he passed on Carson Wentz, passed on Deshaun Watson, and maybe that's not on him. Maybe that's on Sashi Brown, the GM, who they just canned. But so you have Deshaun Kaiser now. He hasn't thrown a 300-yard game yet this season. When he started, he benched a couple, backup didn't do that. Haven't had a 100-yard receiver this year at all. Just finally had Isaiah Crowell just cracked 100 yards in a game for the first time this past week, in which they blew a 14-point fourth-quarter lead against Green Bay, who was without Aaron Rodgers.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that coming up here in just a couple of months. So for me, Chuck Pagano, Dirk Cutter, Hue Jackson, gone. The caveat I give with Hue Jackson is if they're able to win one of their last 3, I think he'll get at least the beginning of next year. Maybe the first month of next year guaranteed, and that's about it. But if he goes 0-16, there is no way I don't think you can justify to your fan base, and I think to a great extent the league, that you're even trying to compete with a guy who goes 1-31 over a 2-year time span. So those are my 3 that I think are on their way out.
Okay, so I have 3 completely different ones. First, I think Vance Joseph. Because I think if he stays, then that's almost like John Elway taking credit or blame rather for
blaming himself.
That, and that is not going to happen.
No.
Vance Joseph is his scapegoat.
He's already started with the scapegoating by firing the DC, and,
right.
And Vance Joseph's probably not far behind.
He's not, and and I'm sure there's plenty of blame to share. I do think that there's some things that Vance Joseph probably could have done better, but man, they're looking really bad. And but it's John Elway. He's not gonna eat that.
He's not conventional.
Right. So
you think after 1 year, Vance Joseph?
I do. I don't know that he necessarily should be, but I think he will.
Okay.
I think that way Elway can save a little face and okay, yeah, he's gone and we got it now.
We're starting over.
Right. When they need to start over a little higher up.
Start higher up. We've talked about that before. John, maybe somebody needs to tell John Elway he's not doing his job.
Okay. Second, John Fox. The Bears have been 12-32 since he became the head coach,
which is amazing given how successful he was in Denver. Granted, he had the best defense we've seen in the league in maybe 10 years, and also Peyton Manning still. But to see that,
but that wasn't the same Peyton Manning we've seen.
Threw 55 touchdowns.
He was effective.
That year, yeah.
He was effective enough.
Yeah, won him a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's amazing to see how far he's fallen.
Yeah. And then last, I don't think Marvin Lewis is going to get an extension. I know we've talked about this, and I know you guys probably disagree with me. Oh, not probably. I know you guys disagree with me, but I think he's completely lost the team.
Yeah,
and
it's not my job to motivate the players.
Right.
Like, what worse?
It's not my job to motivate the players. It's only part of the defense's job to stop the other team from scoring. He is grasping at straws. That's horrible.
What worse quotes can you come up with? It's like you're begging to lose.
Isn't that exactly the coach's job?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the players. You have to get some drive from within, but isn't that part of their job is to get them motivated to play?
You're in charge of something. I mean, you got the head coach title for a reason. You're in charge of something. You better do something.
I'm just the game plan guy, and that's it.
I don't even know if he's that.
He's not a great game day coach.
No.
That's for sure. He's not great.
Lots of
clock
clapping.
Who doesn't love those first quarter timeouts?
Lots of clapping.
Right.
Timeouts coming out of
Good
TV
job.
timeouts.
We just gave up a field goal. Good job. We didn't give up 7 this time. But hey, let's keep Paul Gunther around. I digress.
So, and then, we know how you feel about Paul Gunther.
Oh.
Everyone should feel like that.
That's a whole other show.
Oh,
but since you brought it up, can I just address why I think Hue might stick around one more year?
He will stick around because you want him to stick around.
No, I don't want him to stick around.
Go ahead.
So he has a lot of he was grooming to be Marvin's replacement. They actually.
Oh, Marvin was butthurt about that when he left.
They actually that was actually discussed, and the only reason it fell through was because Mike Brown didn't want to have something that far in the future that said yes, he will definitely take over no matter what. And so I don't blame him. He left, but he definitely has ties here in Cincinnati, and if he leaves, he could come back. Probably not as the head coach, but as an offensive coordinator.
That would be a very hard sell.
I think that would
Marvin to still be the head coach, probably. That would be my guess.
Not necessarily.
I would think so too, because they're so tied together.
They're boys. I mean,
I don't think he would come back for a coordinator spot here without Marvin.
No, I don't think he does either.
But that would be, if he's available as a head coach, that would be a very hard sell to a very distraught Cincinnati fan base to say, we got rid of Marvin Lewis for 15 years. Let's bring in a guy who lost 31 out of 32 in Cleveland.
I don't think they bring him back as a head coach. I don't think they bring him back as a head coach. I don't know that Cleveland would want to let him leave to go to go back to a division rival that he succeeded with.
We'll see.
So
I agree with most of what you guys are saying. I think John Fox is gone. I think Vance Joseph's on very thin ice. I don't know if he's gone. I think he's on very thin ice. The more I watch the Marvin situation, the more I think he might just be done. Again, those quotes from this week, it's almost like he's cashed it in.
He might
knows he's
might
done.
not get a new.
Yeah, that's what
try and get a new.
He might just retire. He might just say, I'm done with it, and that's the point he's at in this season. Is just we'll just let it go. And I don't think Hue comes back because the Browns' history is firing GMs and head coaches together, and they fired Sashi. And I think that Hue is not far behind. I think they let him coach the last 3 games. It's unfortunate, but Cleveland is a dumpster fire, and we all know that. And it's unfortunate because
they don't have any talent.
I know, and
outside of Joe Thomas,
there's a lot of blame around there, and it's going to fall on Hue, and it's the division might be a little upset about that because it's 2 guaranteed wins every season, but it's all going to fall on Hue's head. I think.
Does it really matter who the coach is up there that you can look at and say 2 wins against Cleveland?
Possibly, maybe not here in Cincinnati, but maybe for Pittsburgh.
So with that. Maybe Hue Jackson stays, maybe he doesn't. like I said, I still think the officer wants him to stay for to keep, if anything, keep supplying him with some added ammunition.
Oh, there's always going to be plenty.
Yes, there
of
is. And with that said, it's time for the weekly installment of
Cleveland.
Kieft chime
Such a dumpster fire.
Officer, the floor is yours.
Okay, so for the first dishonorable mention, the Cleveland Browns are 4-41 since the start of the 2015 season. Tom Brady is 145-40 since the start of the 2005 season. Yes, the Browns have had more losses than Tom Brady has in more than 10 years. The Browns have, if you didn't catch that stat, they have 41 losses since 2015. Tom Brady has 40 losses since 2005. Just let that sink in.
10 more years, one less loss.
Yes.
Ugh. Astonishing.
Second dishonorable mention.
Oh, boy.
Speaking of 10 years, John Madden happened to coach for 10 years. And in that time, he lost 32 games as a head coach. Hue Jackson has lost 32 games in his last 34 games as a head coach. Now some of that goes back to his time as the Raiders, but it's taken him 34 games to match John Madden's 10-year loss record.
That's barely 2 years.
Right. Right.
That's 2+ years.
Exactly.
Madden did it in 10.
10.
2 years and two seasons and 2
I don't
games.
even care that Madden's career was during a 14-game season.
No.
I don't care.
And I liked that stat. That was what we teased.
Yeah, that was the teaser from last week.
I thought that was going to be I thought that was going to be beyond.
That's why I said last week that was the leader in the clubhouse. And you even mentioned there's probably going to be something else they do.
And
there's more.
Oh boy, was there. Oh, Jesus. So they finally have a chance to win a game. They're playing the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers, who, as I just Aaron Rodgers-less Packers, who, as I mentioned before, were 2-5 in their last 7 games coming into this game. So at one point in the fourth quarter, they're up 21-7. Things are looking good. Cleveland might actually win. They give up a touchdown. Okay, that's all right. Now they're up 21-14 with 2:51 left in the game, and all they got to do is pin them deep and hold. So what do? They give up a 65-yard punt return. Okay, all right. Packers
still just have to hold them.
Right, just hold. Packers get the ball left with a short field, and they manage to tie the game with 17 seconds left. That's okay. It's overtime. They still have a shot. Then in overtime, Deshaun Kaiser, he has nobody open, and he's getting pressured. He's got Clay Matthews coming at him. And fair enough, I'd probably panic if Clay Matthews was coming at me.
It was 3rd and 2.
Right. So what would you do on 3rd and 2? Heave it straight up in the air, right? What could go wrong?
Punt it with your arm. That's what he did.
That is exactly what he did.
He punted it with his arm.
And they fair caught it.
Yeah.
And so of course, Green Bay intercepts it on the Cleveland side of the 50. Packers march down and score the game-winning touchdown. Are you kidding me? Cleveland actually had a chance to win the game, but nobody can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory quite like the Browns.
It happens all the time. What else do you expect?
I know. So with that,
this has been your week.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
I have a bonus dishonorable mention. After the game, the Green Bay Press Gazette posted a story saying that Demarius Randall held Josh Gordon to 1 catch. So Josh Gordon took to Twitter, and this is the quote. He said, "Great win for them, but let's be serious. Considering several of our disadvantages as a team, this kid couldn't hold my jockstrap on my worst day. LOL." This is the guy that you would have thought would have been humbled by the fact that he's playing his first game since 2014.
Kieft has his head down in shame.
This is also the guy that is the self-titled best gangster ever.
Shut your mouth, kid. Shut up.
He has literally been called the savior of the team and a Christmas present by Browns executives. And he gets on Twitter and basically admits that his team sucks, but he's still really good.
Against the guy that held him to 1 catch.
Right.
Just shut up.
Yeah.
Just shut up and play football.
Right.
God.
Yeah. So with that,
this has been your weekly installment of
so much incest.
Jeez.
Mine's pretty literal right now too.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Kieft, if you weren't completely sick before, that ought to do it.
I don't do it. Get the trash.
Added to it.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, so with that, we'll move into the college ranks. And we talked about it last week. How long is Tennessee going to Cleveland their coaching situation? Well,
It's finally done.
They finally figured it out. And actually, you could look on paper and say it's actually not a bad move.
It's a good hire.
Jeremy Pruitt, the defensive coordinator from Alabama, will take the reins in Knoxville. He's going to stay on with Alabama through the college football playoff, but I think it's a pretty good hire at Tennessee, given everything that they went through and how badly they
botched everything.
They botched especially the Shiano situation, and the other subsequent coaches turned them down.
And we all agreed that they probably weren't going to get a head coach, and they had to get somebody that was a coordinator coming up and kind of hoped it. Which I think they did well.
That's about as one of the good ones as you could get. Because
I still think T. Martin was a better fit, but whatever. They did well.
Pruitt knows the SEC like the back of his hand. And in terms of, I'm not saying Martin doesn't, but in terms of recruiting, Martin had a cup of coffee with Kentucky, so he has a little bit of ties.
And Pruitt was supposedly Saban's best recruiter. So, I mean,
on paper it looks good.
And, Pruitt's going to start poaching some guys from other teams in the SEC to say, "Hey, come work with me."
Yeah, he's already got the relationships with a lot of those kids that are in the area, and he was already recruiting them to Alabama. So now he just has, "Hey, I'm the head coach."
It's hard to take a wait and see approach with this because everybody just kind of want to say, "Oh, this is really going to work out or not," because some situations you thought it was going to be terrible, it actually works out really well, and the other way around. But on paper, this sets Tennessee up, I think, pretty well going forward.
I still think
it's going to take time, and they need to understand that. By the way, the Knoxville fan base, this is going to take time.
Yeah, don't grab your pitchforks just yet. Give the guy a couple years to make something work.
He has to get his own guys in there and start moving some of Butch Jones's other guys out. But the start is there.
And he's a defensive guy. I'd like to see him get a good offensive coordinator in there, because that's essentially the difference than Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart, at least to some degree. They were both the defensive coordinators of Saban, and he needs to get a good play caller in there, and I think that will go a long way as well.
Jeremy Pruitt is one of a multitude of guys who have come from the Nick Saban coaching tree, and I'm going to list some of the guys here just in the college ranks. There's several of them within the NFL. You've got Jeremy Pruitt now at Tennessee, Mario Cristobal, who was coached under Saban. Now he's the new guy at Oregon after Willie Taggart left for Florida State. Jimbo Fisher is now at Texas A&M. Of course, he won a title at Florida State. Lane Kiffin down at FIU, Florida Atlantic. Of course, Kirby Smart, prior defensive coordinator. He's at Georgia and has them. They won the SEC this year. Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State. They've been contenders the last number of years in the Big Ten. Will Muschamp at South Carolina. They surprised people this year. Got the bowl eligibility. Some people thought they'd finish in the basement of a very, very dreadful SEC East, or what was thought to be dreadful at the beginning of the season. So with all of these names out there, does this further add to the lore of Nick Saban being the greatest college football coach we've ever seen?
I don't at all. I think it just shows that he's been in a successful program and been at it for a while, and he's had a lot of guys come through. I'm not saying he's not the greatest. He is. I just don't think that this is any. I don't think this even is a reflection of that or adds to it, because Marvin Lewis has a big coaching tree of head coaches in the NFL.
Oh, did you just compare Nick Saban to Marvin Lewis?
No, that's why I'm saying that it's not a good comparison, and that it doesn't necessarily show anything.
Thank you for clarifying.
But I do think that Nick Saban is the greatest coach. I just don't think that this has anything to do with it.
I think there's some validity to it, because you look at the successfulness. I don't know that's a word, of the coaches as they move on to different programs. And you look at some coaches and you see what Mario Cristobal said about his time with Nick Saban was completely invaluable to him as a coach, and what he learned from Nick Saban as how to lead a team was really something that he carries with him now that he's a head coach at Oregon. It's the coaching tree. He's still successful. Marvin has not been successful. He's still successful, and then the coaches that have branched out have equally been successful in their realm of where they're at. And Jason read the college coaches. There's four NFL head coaches that worked under Nick Saban.
Adam Gase,
Mike Mularkey, Dan Quinn, and Jason Garrett all worked under Nick Saban. I mean, that's impressive, and no one has ever spoken bad about Nick Saban. They've never said that.
Tosh.0 does.
To be fair,
no one of note.
But
that's just as a Dolphins fan.
He's just been a great football coach, and he's creating really good football coaches within his system as well. And it speaks to how good of a coach he is.
He learned from Bill Belichick, coached underneath him, and the irony of all ironies for our purposes, they coached together in
Cleveland.
Two of the greatest coaches ever coaching in the worst city.
While Belichick was the head coach of the Browns back in the late 80s, early 90s. So irony there that you can't say the city spawned two of the greatest coaches ever. I don't think you can go that far.
You can't thank the city for that. You can't thank the city for
anything.
anything.
Just dumb luck.
Nevertheless, a blind squirrel. There you go. Baker Mayfield won the Heisman Trophy. I don't think it was a surprise that he won it. I think we'd all talked in the weeks as winding down the regular season college football that he was going to win the Heisman Trophy.
We all picked that one.
Yeah, we all had that one. If you listen to us every week, you know that, and you know how smart we are for it.
It was a pretty impressive win. He had the 5th most first-place votes ever and the 3rd highest point total ever. I mean, it was pretty impressive. He was first on every region. He was first on every region and first overall. Also, the first walk-on person to start his career as a walk-on to win a Heisman. Started
at Texas Tech, and Cliff Kingsbury didn't think he was good enough.
Chase him out of town.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, way to go, Cliff.
Yeah,
all that gel in your hair didn't help you on that decision, did it?
Keep winning 7 games a year down there in Lubbock. So with that, he won it, and it was in a rout, as we talked about. Bryce Love of Stanford finishes 2nd. Last year's Heisman winner, Lamar Jackson, finishes 3rd. Officer, I believe you take issue with this.
I do. Okay, so last year when Lamar Jackson won it, Baker Mayfield was 3rd. And they both had better years this year. And neither one of them, like Mayfield's stats are a little bit better than last year, but they're not dramatic. They're not, oh my gosh, 5th most Heisman votes worthy increase over 3rd place from last year.
Sure.
It's just I don't see it. And Lamar Jackson, he actually got, I think he looked better this year than last year, more so than Mayfield did. But, and as we discussed, and I do realize, even though it's not his fault, the team, although, again, Louisville went 9-4 last year. They're 8-4 now. So but Oklahoma went 12-1. So I don't think he should have been 3rd. I think he should have been a close 2nd. But, I mean, what's it matter what I think?
Yeah.
Apparently,
he already has a Heisman Trophy though, so finished first one year, 3rd the next year. A lot of times you don't even see guys get the invite back. I don't think it takes away from any kind of season he had. He had a hell of a year.
It's still impressive, and he's still going to be have a good opportunity in the NFL, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes from there.
The lone regular season game that took place over this past weekend, and it's saved for a weekend unto itself, and I think as it should, was the Army-Navy game. Army beats Navy. Navy's kicker misses a field goal as time expires. We'll give him a pass for that. I brought that up as a possible nominee among the 3 of us, and at the same time, I was like, I can't really critique a Navy kicker
in the snow too,
in the snow,
bad weather, and it's hard to take a dig at a kid who serves our country. It really is.
Yeah. So Army wins for the 2nd year in a row, which is surprising given how dominant Navy's been in the rivalry last
They
9
lost
years.
the previous 14 in a row before they won back to back.
How about Navy losing 6 of their last 7 to end the season for starting 5-0?
5-0 and end up 6-6.
Coach Niamatololo, you might want to think about cashing that in and moving on from.
Yeah, a little rough down the stretch there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great tradition.
It's the politest rivalry in sports.
And you have after the games, the winning team, the teams go to their each sidelines and they do their each the songs for each one. The Army Navy thing, great tradition. To me, this is the coolest game in college football all year long. And I know we've talked about best rivalries, Bedlam. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party, clean old-fashioned hate, the Civil War, the Apple Cup. this is still the best.
It's the coolest, and unless you served in one of the two, you don't care who wins.
Right. No, I don't care whatsoever.
America wins.
Yes.
So and that's the whole pageantry around everything, the flyover pregame.
It's so old school too because both teams run that triple option offense.
It's downhill running.
It takes you back to a far gone generation of football when the forward pass was unheard of. I think there were 3 passes.
3 total passes in the game.
It was just, like I said, just old school smash mouth, and yet both teams bust out unreal alternate uniforms.
They're so awesome.
Those are awesome. They're pretty sweet.
I think this was the best year combined for them.
Yeah, the snow all around it. Army busts out the white camo.
Yeah.
You know, the Navy and the blue, like the Blue Angels with the helmets that are designed like the Blue Angel helmets. I mean, this is just so cool.
It was awesome.
So I read about it this year. Army's uniform. It was for the 10th Mountain Division unit from World War II, and they operated in really harsh.
I didn't know that part. That kicks ass even more.
Right? It's so cool. And so reading about that, guys, they operated in really harsh winter conditions, and in order to stay in formation in the snowstorms and everything, they had a dark stripe on the back of their uniform, and it was known as the Follow Me stripe. And if you look at the back of Army's helmets, they had a dark stripe just in the back. That's great. It's so cool.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. So cool.
It's so cool because you almost never see these teams change uniforms. I think Navy's mixed it up a couple of times the last few years, but for both of them to go all out for this, and then for the Mother Nature to cooperate and have the snow on top of it.
Yeah.
So Army's still camouflaged.
Yes.
It was awesome. You know, the Star Spangled Banner pregame is just amazing.
You can't beat it.
You can't. And again, the winner is America.
That's one of those games where it's like if you're a sports fan, that should be on your bucket list to get to one of those games. I've wanted to go for a number of years. Yeah. It's played in Philly usually every year played in Philly, and then they alternate between Philly and Baltimore.
I have in-laws that go every year. I'm jealous.
Okay. So call the in-laws. We may have to tag along for a road trip.
Right.
I had the opportunity to play at Navy when I was in college, and it's one of the coolest experiences. We lost the game, and not surprisingly, but it was one of the coolest experiences to see everything that surrounds that stadium.
They had to make it a little easier to swallow the loss.
Yeah, it's okay. Again, America won.
So both those teams will be in bowl games. Army's really come up the last couple of years, by the way.
You know who didn't win?
Who didn't win?
This week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week. You know why? No, we're going to do it right now.
Okay.
Fumblegate Fatty might have to leave.
Okay.
Fumblegate Fatty's feeling like he drank too much again.
Okay, so we have early season bowl picks. We'll get to those here in a second. But Mr. Adam Kieft wants to get right to his Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
Yeah, so America won the Army and Navy game, but one team that didn't win, University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. Oh, barn burner with the University of Mount Union, which for those of you who are familiar with Division III football, Mount Union is a powerhouse, absolute powerhouse. And
it's a bad year for Mount Union if they lose one game.
Yeah, if they're not undefeated, that's a bad year. And so Oshkosh actually is winning the game, 35 to 10, winning the game. They end up losing the game by 3, 43-40. So there's a lot of blame to be passed around. But Taylor Geisthart, he gets the most blame because he missed 2 field goals that either one of them ties the game and both of them win the game. From 33 and 46, misses them both. They lose the game by 3, and a massive comeback by Mount Union. But the kickers still to blame.
The 46-yarder to tie the game at the end of regulation was short. Didn't have the distance.
Oh, man.
From 46.
More leg curls, buddy. More leg curls.
Man.
And with that, you are the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
What a bum. What a bum.
So I think while Adam steps out and we move forward with our picks,
let's finish.
We'll just get his and we'll post them.
Yeah, we'll post them online. So the entire bowl season, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to go through game by game and just kind of give some picks. We'll throw in a little bit of tidbits here and there to keep an eye on in each of the games, but just give you some picks and we'll keep track of those as we go forward through the entire bowl season. We'll see who does the best. 5 bowl games on the docket this coming Saturday. The first one that we'll take a look at is the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Troy versus North Texas.
I got North Texas. I got North
that's
Texas.
simple. That's simple. I've got Troy in that one, and the reason is because North Texas allows 34 points per game.
No. You know what? I'm sorry. I looked at my notes wrong.
Now you're going to switch.
No, I'm not switching. I have Troy wins.
Okay.
North Texas covers the spread.
Okay.
That was where, and
we're just going straight picks.
I know,
here.
but that's my.
Okay, so we both got Troy on that one. Okay.
Yes.
Next game up, the Auto Nation Cure Bowl. Okay. Western Kentucky takes on Georgia State.
I think Western Kentucky wins in an ugly game against two not-so-good teams, and they end their 5-game skid.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Georgia State averages less than 20 points a game. Not spelling good against the Western Kentucky offense that can score. Las Vegas Bowl, in which could be a high-scoring affair. Boise State takes on Oregon with that new head coach up there.
Boise's the 7.5-point underdog, and I take them winning because they haven't lost to Oregon yet, and Oregon just lost Willie Taggart.
Gonna be tough for Boise. I'm going with Oregon.
I just didn't want to take the favorite in every game.
I understand that. You got to go with the upsets every once in a while. That's fine. And the reason why is Oregon's going to have Justin Herbert back at quarterback. When he's been the quarterback this year, they're 6-1, averaging 51 points per game. So that's the reason why I have Oregon there. Next up, the Gildan New Mexico Bowl. Marshall taking on Colorado State.
I think Colorado State's good offense but bad defense beats Marshall's good defense but bad offense.
So you got the Rams of Colorado State.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Long distance for Marshall to travel, plus they've lost 4 of their last 5 going into the game. The last one on Saturday, the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl. Middle Tennessee State. Shout out Mike Polly.
Yep. So
a high school graduate of ours, he's an assistant coach for Middle Tennessee, taking on Arkansas State.
So I'm not going to go against my boy. I'm taking Middle Tennessee for Mike Polly.
I'm going with Arkansas State. The Red Wolves.
Boo.
Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year, Javon Rollin-Jones.
Come on, Mike. Don't let me down. I'm undefeated so far.
I'm not going to be upset if I miss on that pick. Go ahead, Polly. Win the game.
Right.
Next Tuesday, Akron takes on Florida Atlantic in the Cheribundi Tart Cherry Boca Raton Bowl. We should mention this game is at Florida Atlantic Stadium.
Home game, bowl game.
This is a rout. This is a rout and a half.
Yep. Sorry, Maction. FAU wins running away at home as a 22.5-point favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the Owls on that one. And finally, next Wednesday, the DXL Frisco Bowl. Louisiana Tech travels to Texas to take on SMU, who is without new head coach there. Chad Morris has moved on to Arkansas.
I think SMU wins in a close, high-scoring game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, SMU as well. So we will get the picks of our Fumblegate Fatty coming up, and we'll post all of our picks on the social media, Facebook and Twitter.
I would look on his notes, but if he's all sickly and breathing on him stuff, I kind of don't want to touch him.
Yeah, we'll leave those alone. We'll just have him send them to us via email or something like that. That'll wrap up the podcast version here of Fumblegate, and we do thank you for tuning in. At Fumblegate, #Fumblegate, Officer your Twitter.
FGP Cop.
He's also on Facebook now. Search for FGP Cop there on the Facebook. Interact with him there. Follow Mr. Adam Kieft on Twitter at Fumblegate Fatty. Any businesses in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, you want us to come to your location and record an episode of Fumblegate, email us at fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com, or any other businesses out there looking for sponsorship opportunities, we'll do that as well. fumblegatepodcast@gmail.com. You have been listening to the Fumblegate Podcast. Okay, so with that, welcome into the post-show here on Facebook Live. It was a good show.
Yeah,
Kieft
was fun.
Kieft bailed. He's been sickly.
Yeah, he had to really power through it. I think he was struggling. I didn't know if he was going to make the start.
He had 3 bottles of water before he crushed them all. They're gone. I think he was working on the Capri Sun as he finished.
Yes, he managed to get the straw through it, and not well. Of course, now they're not like when we were growing up, where they actually have a hole now where the straw goes.
Yeah, a little. God, man, those were way different, way better. So, a lot we got through on. Eric, you've got the social media going over there.
Yeah, just from what I was watching, it seems like we didn't have as much chatter as last week. But
well, you got to start something.
Right. We're still going to do it.
Oh yeah, we're still going to take questions, comments, and we address them. Maybe sometimes before the show, if not after the show.
I had quite a few of my friends temporarily watching for a second, and I'm sure they were wondering what the heck was going on. I think that's probably the first time my name's ever been attached to something that was live on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's okay. But we still had fun.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's still good. So, like we said last week and this week again, we're going to continue to do this every week here on Facebook. Usually every Wednesday night around this time, we usually get going around 10 o'clock or so and record the podcast version, which you can hear on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Is that all of them?
Yeah.
That's all of them. Okay. So you can hear the podcast version, which is a condensed version of the show you just heard of, and then we do a little bit before, and now we'll do a little bit after as well. I'm curious to see who Kieft has in some of these bowl games, because I figure
We were pretty close in ours.
yeah, not a lot of difference. I think I'm looking at them right now. We differed on the Boise State, Oregon, and then you went with Mike Polly.
I had to.
I got it, and that was the first when I saw the game. That was my first thought: is Mike Polly's coaching down there.
Right.
If you don't know who we're talking about, Mike Polly, we graduated from high school with him. I did the same year. He's 2 years ahead. And he's an assistant coach down at Middle Tennessee.
Special teams, O-line, and tight ends, I believe.
He wanted the head job at our alma mater a few years ago when our coach retired. He didn't get it. But
wow.
He's a Division I assistant coach now, so things could be definitely a lot worse in his realm. So but we'll see what happens there. There's like 41 bowl games this year, I think.
Yeah, well,
something like that.
Plenty of opportunity.
We got a lot of picks to get through
for me to build on my lead.
I'm wondering if he actually took
Football teams are there now?
Division I football teams. Are there like 300 or something?
I don't know.
I don't. Now I got to look.
I didn't think it was that many.
No, that's basketball. Actually, I think
128 or something. 124. I feel like it's in the 120s. My guess is I guess 124.
Probably something in that realm.
130 even.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
130.
And I'm assuming he took Akron to win that game against Florida just because
Maction.
Take Maction. Even though they're playing. Because
he's a homer.
How, by the way, and I don't know how does Florida Atlantic get a bowl game in their home stadium?
I know.
How does that happen?
I don't know.
I mean,
same way USC played the Rose Bowl in their stadium for years and years and years.
Yeah,
that's true. It's like, congrats, Akron, you made a bowl. Now go down and get your ass kicked. And you're
the Big 8 and Big 12 teams played bowl games in the Cotton. Is it the Cotton Bowl that's there?
Yeah.
Eric, why don't you come up here and join us?
Sit in the mic. Sit on the mic here and have a chat.
Here, we got a not Jeremy one over here too.
No, non-pukey one from Kieft.
Yeah, I'll need that.
Which I think he's
Lane Train.
Lane Train.
Yeah,
really.
The FAU Lane Train.
FAU, the Fighting Lane Kiffins.
FAU.
The Fighting Lane Kiffins. I like that better than the Owls. Maybe that's just me.
All right, if you can take the stand part off if you want or whatever.
You just want.
I'll just leave Kieft on there. Sorry.
Okay, that's fair. The Lane Train. Nicely done there.
Yeah.
Is that Coach Blevins?
Coach Blevins.
Coach Blevins. Yeah, he's on there.
Not to be confused with Night Train Lane.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Did I have him on our all-time team?
I know I didn't. It was either you or Drew.
If you go back and listen to our very first two-part episode, we did an all-time team draft. We picked any player from any generation, basically did a draft of it. I can't remember if I was the case or not.
Is he the one that clotheslined people? Was that his?
He would tackle people by their head.
That was Drew's guy. Drew drafted.
He was
him.
like a 6'4" defensive, 6'4" cornerback.
Yes.
Jim Lane. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would tackle people by their head and collar. I believe he was the original player that made the horse collar tackle a penalty. They did it because of him.
You got to be doing something wrong if the league institutes a rule.
I want to say he played in part of his career was in the pre-face mask era, and he would just grab the side of people's helmets and drag them down by by their head.
That's a tough way to play.
Yeah. You probably remember watching him play, don't you?
Yeah. He stuffed me in a locker in junior high school.
So Eric's a couple years older than us, but we like to talk about how he's in his late 50s.
How do you feel about your Cornhuskers Are you a Cornhuskers fan again? Now it's Scott Frost is.
I've kind of gotten away from watching a lot of college football. I would hope that Scott Frost would reinstall the great Tom Osborne's style of offense to Nebraska, because I think when that ended there, the success that their program had began to fall off. There's just something wrong with seeing a cornfield team try to throw the ball when you saw the power eye that I saw there. He's had a lot of success in Florida, so ideally, maybe he goes to Nebraska, and the name helps them recruit a little bit. Texas has fallen off a little bit, so there's maybe a little bit of less crowd in the recruiting in that region. I always think of them as a Big 12 school when it comes to who they're competing against recruiting wise. They're still fighting the Oklahomas and the Texas A&Ms.
You're from Nebraska. How do you get kids to go to school there? What's the attraction other than the lore of Nebraska football? Is there?
I don't really know that there is. That school has a lot of history, and it's such a storied program. I mean, the stadium itself is the third largest city in the state during a football game. That's
pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool.
That's not just a funny joke. It truly is. It's, Omaha's first, Lincoln is second, and then the Memorial Stadium is the third largest city in the state. It's about an hour outside of Omaha, which is comparable in size to Cincinnati, and it's just a ritual. On Saturdays, there's a massive 30 and 40 mile long parade of cars flying Nebraska flags as everybody migrates down there to watch the game. And I think in Nebraska's heyday, they were famous for having one of, if not the most successful walk-on programs. A ton of their roster was walk-on, and I don't know if you could call it success because of the system, or what you would call it, but they were just really, really good at getting studs out of people that they didn't spend scholarships on. And then, their style was they got a running back that they gave a quarterback number, and he got to hand the ball to another running back. And if they didn't give it to him, there was a third, a fourth, a fifth running back. It was just, and then you had a bunch of 330-pound corn-fed farm boys that were just country strong and could push the other guys down harder. I think that was their model for success. I don't know if that would work in today's football. Offense is a evolution, but it certainly worked well in the 90s.
Yeah, right. Well, in the 80s and the 70s.
3 yards in a cloud of dust, man.
Did they bust out Fumblegate again? Or wait, they made that illegal.
Yeah, that was made illegal because of
because they ran it so well.
I suppose that was a little before my time. I've read about.
You sure?
That as much
was it?
Yeah.
Was it really?
I was alive, but I was alive. I think that was in '81. I want to say it was in '81 against Miami.
So you were drinking beer and watching that?
Yeah,
legally.
Some stuff I brewed 10 years ago.
Right.
But I think now it's probably a lot harder for Nebraska to recruit. They're in a conference with Ohio State, with Michigan. You got guys like Harbaugh and the coach at Ohio State now, whereas before you were only going up against Texas, and it's a lot steeper climb for Nebraska in their modern situation versus what they were facing 10, 15 years ago.
They're also pretty far out of the way in the Big Ten, too. I mean, they have, they're a few hundred miles west of Iowa.
They are. That's why I said I generally think of them as still competing against the Big 12 on the recruiting front. You've got Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M. I guess not Texas A&M, but those are the schools they compete against when it comes to recruiting.
Do you think he can go down into Florida and get some of those kids?
Well, that's certainly.
I know Florida's loaded with.
Well, yeah. Talent. I mean, it's a possible upside. The population in Florida. I mean, there's Miami's population is probably bigger than the state of Nebraska's. So if you've gotten to if he's developed relationships maybe with some of the schools down there, and he's probably a name in Florida, he certainly probably can. He can probably walk into living rooms. He knows his way around the state, and if he made some trips down there in recruiting time, his time probably wouldn't be wasted. He'd probably be able to get some players.
Is Kieft all right? I haven't heard.
He just sent a text message. He's not coming back.
Oh, okay.
So
that's fair.
Yeah.
There it is.
All right. So, yes, we'll let him know, Coach Blevins, that he needs you. You're thinking about him. We hope he gets well as well. We're in his house. It's kind of
Well, that's why we have the Bengals helmet up here, which is his helmet, not just a for-show helmet. It has his number on the back of it. It's one he used, and then the Chippewas helmet up there right above the officer's head, which almost has like a type effect with the light.
You're right. Yeah.
One of those helmets has blood in it. I don't know which one.
I think you said it was the Bengals one.
Yeah, I think the Bengals one has literally blood, sweat, and tears in it.
We wore it for 8 plays, so
preseason
preseason plays.
Preseason plays. Yeah. He still has the visor on it. Which is, somebody to go Three Stooges and poke his eyes. He wouldn't take it off even after retiring.
Right. You know what I always hated about Adam Kieft, since he's not here, I can talk about him. It'd be like
we're in his house, but he's not here. Let's dump on him.
It'd be like he'd be like, "Hey, let's go let's go hang out, do whatever." And I'd be like, "I can't, I got to work." And his response would be, "Why don't you just retire like I did?" You got me there.
Well, because I wasn't 6'7" and 330 pounds,
right?
Or 7'7" according to Wikipedia at one time. Yeah. Was that you that made the Wikipedia edit, Eric?
I will neither confirm nor deny any of that.
It's still there. You can go back and look at past edits. It is still there.
You can.
At one point, he was like 7'7" and 440 pounds.
And the only thing smaller than his hands is his penis.
I think we may have gotten Kieft confused with one of the guys that we created on Madden.
Right.
When it comes to dimensions.
Good times.
Does Wikipedia include the golf ball that's on his foot right now?
Oh my gosh. He needs to get that checked out.
I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's like I don't know.
There's an Arnold not a tumor joke in here somewhere, but I'm too tired to come up with it.
Right.
Yeah, he's got something on the top of his foot that, like, you can see it when he puts his sock on. It's like the size of a golf ball sticking up from the top of his foot. And we asked his wife about it earlier, and she's like, "That's been worse. He's fine."
Yes. I guess.
Are we allowed to talk about his health conditions? Is that like a HIPAA violation or HIPAA violation? I don't know.
If he's retired.
If
he's retired and you're in his house and he's not here, then it's all for game. I think that's written somewhere.
Yeah. Is that kind of like if we leave beer in his fridge for more than 24 hours, he's allowed to drink it?
Yes. It's in the
he'll
same.
tell you that.
It's in the same chapter of the Bible.
Yes.
Well, he said on the beginning of our broadcast here on Facebook that he bought 10 cases of beer today.
So, yeah.
They were $3
for anybody
apiece.
out there, they had High Life Light at Jungle Gym's 12 packs for $3. I said had because he bought them out.
He said there were 10 left.
A quarter of beer is a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty funny that you can't buy bottled water at a rate of a quarter of a bottle of water.
No,
but
right.
But, if we add hops and barley and yeast and boil it and ferment it, then it gets real cheap.
More work to make it cheaper.
Yeah. Right.
You're still getting the.
It's kind of like the sugar-free snacks costing more. I call bullshit. There's less stuff in there.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Are you still trolling people on the social media?
Am I?
Yeah. You were earlier.
On occasion.
Kevin Hitchcock said he didn't think Devin Hester was Hall of Fame worthy.
He's a smart guy.
He's right. I think so.
He's right.
Eric,
exactly.
do you think Devin Hester should be in the Hall of Fame?
I think I think no, he shouldn't, but that's kind of a complex answer. I think he shouldn't under the current format that they have a maximum number of players they allow into the Hall of Fame. And I think you have to answer the question. There's a lot of people who belong in the Hall of Fame, but they're not just because there's more people in front of them and there's only so many spots. I mean, getting into the Hall of Fame now is a game of musical chairs, and you got to hope you get a seat. And, I mean, somebody explained to me why T.O. isn't in the Hall of Fame. I mean, rationalize that. I don't.
Because the media doesn't like him.
Right.
And that's who's voting.
Right. That's, I mean.
Which is, you know.
To me, when you look at modern NFL news and what it usually covers, you know, the Ray Rice type stories, you know, the Michael Bennett, there's always controversy going on. And I always look at T.O. as somebody, you know, he never got caught in a hotel room with a 13-year-old. He never got arrested. He never, you know, he didn't get 11 DUIs in 3 years. You know, he didn't get 74 chances to redeem the horror story that his life became. And the media treats him like, you know, like he's a criminal. And I think he gets a raw deal. He's somebody that should be in the Hall of Fame, and he's not, because there's only so many seats.
He's what, 4th all time in receiving yards now? Because Larry Fitzgerald passed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And
he'll get in. He'll get in. He should have been first ballot.
I think he should. Yeah,
he should. But I think that's the issue. Is, you know, is if you should get into the Hall of Fame, but you probably won't until 10 years later. Well, the more and more people retire, and it's, you know, I think people just keep sliding in front of you. I think your position in the line can become stagnant. It's
Ken Anderson.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, that's he should be in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't know how you take the 4th best receiver all time, and say,
at the time he retired 3rd.
Yeah, a guy who retired 3rd in receiving, and say we're not going to let you in because of interviews that went on after the fact. It's kind of a popularity contest.
Well, you have nobody's really saying that much in the same vein about Randy Moss. I know Moss sort of calmed down towards the end of his career. Granted, some of that was while he was in New England, and I think he was basically told, you're going to play by the rules up here.
Yeah.
Which he did.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he did.
And he caught, 23 touchdowns or something?
Yeah, the year Brady had 50.
I think one of the things with Randy Moss, too, that helps him and helps his case, I don't think people remember, didn't Randy Moss have an incident when he was driving a car and
with a traffic cop,
with a traffic attendant? You know, he was pushing a traffic attendant with a car or something to that effect, and like that's the kind of thing that nowadays would get you instant notoriety. But when he did it, you know, the bad boys of the NFL got a pass, and now he's put himself into a broadcasting booth, and I think it's made him a lot more likable.
He's on the right side of the media.
Yeah. I mean, he's met a lot of those people. He shook hands with them, and I think they, you know, when you meet anybody and talk to him in person, they seem like a decent guy. I think I don't think Randy Moss is a bad guy, but he certainly had a much more troubled newsreel early in his career than Terrell Owens did. You know, I mean, he had run-ins with the law, things of that nature. Yet, you know, most people would probably tell you Randy Moss gets in right away.
Yeah, he should.
And he should, you know, he should. But I also think somebody like T.O. should too. It's
so speaking of bad guys, because I like to get stuff that you didn't see coming. Were you aware of the Josh Gordon tweet? It seemed like your reaction. Oh,
yeah, I sent that to you.
Did you?
Yeah, because the Green Bay guy responded, well, he must still be kind of messed up or something to that effect.
That's right.
Something to that effect. Yeah, he responded back to it. I mean, like we said during the show, you're gonna talk like this after you've been out of the league for 3 years because you can't keep yourself straight, and then you're gonna talk at a guy who held you to one catch. I mean, and
it's not a good look.
And trash your team, your entire team in the process.
Our team's got disadvantages.
You know, there's kind of the Michael Vick resurrection. I'm going to keep my mouth closed,
right?
You know, fly under the radar and resurrect my career.
And then there's this.
And then there's Josh Gordon who took it out and shot it in the head.
Right.
Speaking of, I think I read Michael Vick is officially out of debt.
He is, yeah. He paid off all of his creditors.
He's officially out of debt.
Yeah,
good for him. I wish I could say the same.
Good for his creditors, to be honest.
Right.
Good for the people he owed money.
I'm shocked. I didn't think that was a hole he was ever going to climb out of.
He owed a lot of money.
And he kind of got hosed. There was a lot of people that were supposed to manage his money that were just outright stealing from him.
Yeah. He had the Mike Tyson Don King dynamic going on with a lot of the people
multiple people that
helping
did it
him
too.
manage his life.
Yeah, and they wanted just keeping it for themselves.
Right.
But it's funny, he got a pretty fair shake at a second chance.
He did.
But like Eric said, you want to start off, you want to ask for your second chance, and then you go firing off tweets the day after your team has just suffered their 13th loss of the season in 13 games.
Right.
If I'm playing for a Cleveland Browns team, I think I don't tweet anything in the hopes that history doesn't reference me with them whatsoever.
Right.
I think I think I take the Christmas story. Randy lay there like a slug. It was his only defense tactic. Is what I would do if I were associated with anything having anything to do with Cleveland.
Seriously.
I'm just wondering, like, what would Joe Thomas have done if he was active in the locker room?
Coach Blevins is asking, should Larry Fitzgerald get in? Having spent his career with one team.
100%.
He's another guy. I think the measure of his character will even, not that he needs it, but it'll springboard him even higher.
Never been an issue with him.
No, he's always been a likable guy.
He's going to finish as number 2 all time. Behind Jerry Rice. And by the way, it's still crazy to think that he'll finish number 2 all time and finish like 7,000 yards behind Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
He'll have played
in a totally different era, too.
He'll have played for, 15 years, let's say, and he'll still be 2/3 of the way to Jerry Rice.
Yeah. And Jerry Rice played when you were allowed to play defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice played when the corner was allowed to stab the wide receiver within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Right. And if you caught it, the safety could literally try and kill you.
Well, you could see, too, the battles he had with Deion Sanders when Deion was in Atlanta, and then afterwards after the 1 year in Frisco when he went to Dallas.
Yeah.
What a matchup that was.
Yeah.
Between those two. Those guys were, different era.
Two goats butting heads.
I drafted Deion in our all-time
fantasy
draft we did.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
How could you not?
I know. He was one of my early picks.
Yeah.
I want to say second or third.
Yeah, he would be one of mine as well.
I took LT first.
Yeah, the officer got hurt because he took LT, and right behind him I took Marshall Faulk. And we know the officers love an affinity for Marshall Faulk, and he didn't take him.
Yeah. What?
I know.
You guys were talking about return men earlier. You know, you got Devin Hester, and of course the conversation went on to return men and scoring touchdowns. That was Deion Sanders for a while early in his career too. Yeah. You didn't want to kick the ball anywhere.
But unlike Hester, he also played defense and offense.
Yeah, you could make
he was the best returner in the NFL for 5 or 7 years. You didn't want the ball anywhere near him.
But
and he was not as good a returner as he was a corner. I mean, he revolutionized the position totally.
Yeah, you can make the argument he's the greatest corner ever.
Yeah.
On top of the fact he was so good as a return man.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
No way Marvin is back, but we are talking about Mr. Brown. Good point there, Seth. Yeah, that's the thing. I think I want to think Marvin's gone. And by the way, it's interesting too. You think about this. It's not just Marvin. The entire coaching staff's contracts are up this year. It could be wholesale changes.
I think Marvin walks away at this point.
I do too.
I haven't watched a lot of football this year, but I've seen a couple of comments. I've heard a couple of local radio personalities talk about Marvin, and he just strikes me as somebody who doesn't have the drive to do it.
I think he's already checked out.
Yeah, I mean, being an NFL coach is a 90-hour-a-week at minimum job, and I think he's burned out. I think he's exhausted just from the whole process.
Yeah, I just don't know. You can't ever, because there's been how many times in the last 15 years have we said this is it? He's definitely
another
gone.
question is I think it's up in the air. The city's talking about defaulting on the money they owe
The county is,
or the county is, The county is.
They're not talking about it. They said we are not paying that. We can renegotiate this contract or figure it out.
Very likely could see Marvin Lewis go, and then the team go with him wherever that may be, onto quote greener pastures. But
yeah,
I'm actually kind of glad that the county's doing that. Honestly, it's such a bad deal, and it's like right now they have to pay him $3 million. But by the end of the deal, it would be $30 million because it goes up every year, and so they're just nipping it now. Like, nope, we're just going to violate it. We can renegotiate or whatever.
Just default.
Well, yeah, it's just back when the deal was made for the stadium. I think they were just Mike Brown held it over their heads so much that I'll leave. I'll go to Orlando. I think Orlando was one of the destinations they were talking about moving to, and they were so desperate to keep the Bengals here. To keep the city of Cincinnati relevant, I think through the winter months, they agreed to such a horrible lease.
And now the city's kind of revived, and I think they're saying, okay.
Well, I think
leave.
I think the politics and what's going on with football, attendance, viewership, all those numbers are extremely down, and I think I think the city has quite a bit more leverage to shrug their shoulders and say, okay, go.
Right.
We'll call your bluff.
Yeah. Not only that, but I think the city saw what. With the renovation of the banks in the area down by the stadium, I think, that's a huge chunk of real estate that there's probably a lot of people with a lot of money salivating at what they could do with that area, in front of the river.
Well, it's just there's the revitalization of downtown Cincinnati. It's given other people from outside there reasons to come.
Absolutely.
Whereas even 10 years ago, outside of the Reds during the summer and the Bengals in the fall and the winter, what was there to come to check out in Cincinnati?
Well,
there wasn't as much.
Yeah, there certainly wasn't, and I think you have the success that the development of Over the Rhine has seen.
Yeah,
and I think that'll be not necessarily a catalyst, but it'll be kind of a blueprint that you can change and revitalize an area.
Well, then might be getting a pro soccer team now.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go downtown.
I still think that thing's going to the west side. I don't think it's going to Oakley.
The west end,
the west side of Cincinnati.
I agree.
I think the blueprints there that they can put a lot of you have restaurants, shops, stores, places that people go 7 nights a week. I mean, let's face it, the largest structure in downtown Cincinnati, probably, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's probably vacant 95% of the time. It's an empty building that isn't used 95% of, the clock of its lifespan. And it just seems horribly, horribly inefficient to have it down there in that kind of prime real estate.
Well, and that's one of the areas that was sort of discussed for a little while. Paul Brown Stadium could that be a viable home for FC Cincinnati? And that got shut down pretty quickly, which is why they
wanted a dedicated soccer field.
Well, that's what MLS wants. Yeah. Despite the fact that Seattle, the Sounders play where the Seahawks play up there. Granted, I think they average like 40,000 a game. So you could make the argument that's well deserved. You could share a football stadium, but that's the MLS's thing right now. You have to have your own stadium, which to a point I can see. But when FC Cincinnati, who is in a second-tier league, is averaging more than 20,000 a game, averaging more than half of the teams in MLS.
Right.
Does it really matter? Should it? I don't know that it should matter.
I don't know that it has to matter, but I think they have the luxury of deciding. I mean, I think soccer's gaining popularity always. It's the most popular sport on the planet, and with what certainly looks like the decline of football right now. I mean, certainly that'll probably plateau off somewhere. I don't know where, but the decline of football and the emergence of soccer, I think that MLS has the luxury of saying, well, if you don't build us a dedicated stadium, there are people who will. I mean, they have all the options and all the
a lot of cities who want that.
Absolutely.
Want MLS bids. Yeah, for sure. On top of the fact the MLS right now, the expansion fee is $250 million. So if you get approved into the MLS, that's fine, great. You not only have to build yourself a stadium, you have to give the league $250 million.
Wow.
So they do have, and yet you have all these cities willing to do it. You have, it looks like Sacramento is probably going to get one of the expansion slots. They've been killing it as far as attendance goes in the USL for years. Miami is still trying to get their act together. Even with David Beckham as the owner, they can't seem to figure things out. And I'm not surprised in that because we've seen the attendance of sporting events in Miami over the years. It's not there.
How many games are in an MLS season?
I'm not sure.
Per team. What's the schedule look like?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Is it 10? Is it 40? I have no idea.
It's more than that. I'm not sure off the top of my head with it, but I mean it starts in FC Cincinnati starts in the spring and goes through the summer months.
It's 34.
Okay, so
34 game regular season.
Yeah.
You figure a lot of those places are putting 30,000 fans and seats. Probably in some cities is it upwards of 40.
Well, Seattle is well. That's like I said before. That's Cincinnati. They averaged like 21,000 this past year, and that was more than half of the league teams in MLS. There were some MLS teams like Columbus.
Well, what I'm getting at is
who couldn't draw 12,000 at theirs, and they're talking about moving to Austin, Texas, which would further help Cincinnati's bid if that happened. By the way,
what I'm getting at is being a major sports team owner is an endeavor of billionaires. And when they look at a 34-game season where they can put 40,000 fans in the seats, that's a profitable business right away. You're not going to find any. There's no. It sounds crazy to say, but there's no shortage of billionaires who have that kind of capital if they know they'll get that kind of return on investment.
Well, it is the Lindner family who at one time owned the Reds. They were, but the only thing they were known for was when they traded for Ken Griffey Jr., signed him to a $120 million contract.
And built him a stadium with a short right field.
They did, yeah, and then didn't bother trying to compete the rest of the time they were ownership because they figured, we're done here. But you're right. It is a smaller event, a smaller number of games, and 34 games, but only half of them are at home.
Yeah.
So you have 17 home games on the season to cram that many people.
It's funny,
in there.
if you figure an NFL season 17 weeks, it's the math's a little off, but you double it. And most NFL teams are probably putting, I would guess, 2 years ago, most NFL teams were putting around 60 to 70,000 people in the stadium. It's right around the same numbers as NFL attendance.
Pretty accurate, yeah.
So, just ballpark. See what I did there?
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Yeah, well done. I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Another good week here. I want to thank everyone for tuning in on Facebook Live. You can hear the podcast version of this tomorrow. SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Just search Fumblegate if you're not already subscribed to us on any of those platforms. Kieft is somewhere in the doldrums of his home praying to the porcelain gods, I think.
Yeah, or something.
I don't even know. I don't know. We'll see. We do thank everyone for chiming in, chatting with us, chatting with Eric during the show here. And we certainly do appreciate that. Keep those comments coming. Keep the questions coming ahead of time next week. If there's anything that maybe you would like us to discuss ahead of time, let us know, and we'll certainly go over it. And certainly we'll take it under consideration, and maybe we'll see your topic suggestion discussed here on the show. But I think for now we're going to close it out here. And once again, you've been watching the Fumblegate podcast.
Yeah.